This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's Family.
Well, it is like the third, fourth, fifth. It's the Suns off season, and our next guest is here to bring some excitement to the matter because I really have been in a funk since the Suns lost the Denver Nuggets, and I got to get out of it. So who better to talk to us than the one, the only Espo, zooming in from PHNX. You seem like you're always in a good mood, right? Are you feeling good about this off season?
Well, I'm feeling good because Tempe hasn't voted to keep me out of town yet, so that's a win.
Yeah, I mean they didn't vote for a toxic waste dump over you. What
I've been
does
called
that say?
worse things than a toxic waste dump.
What does that say about the state of sports in Arizona? By the way, I mean I know we're here to talk Suns, but they have to clean up the dump anyway, right?
Well, and it's always nice when you can vote to not let somebody else pay to clean up your mess. That's always wonderful. It's just a parade of sadness here in Phoenix. That's what sports has become. Somehow, they say sports is an escape from your regular life, but somehow it just keeps getting worse than my regular life.
Oh my gosh, the parade of sadness, the podcast that nobody listens to. So yeah, let's dive right into this. Actually, one more question about the Coyotes. You're an East Valley guy, right?
Yep.
So where would you like to see them build their new arena that probably won't get built, and we'll probably be doing this for the next 15 years with another vote that doesn't go through?
Look, I got a really small side yard. There's no vote that has to take place. We just need to convince my HOA, and we're good to go.
Good.
Look,
good.
there's plenty of places in the East Valley. I mean, there's plenty of parcels of land in Mesa and on the reservation and different places that they can look at. The question is, what will be Plan B? How realistic is it? And can you get it moving as fast as you were hoping to get the TED moving? Because you had that whole part of the plan where remediation had to take place for 6 to 8 months. Can you get a deal in place and get shovels in the ground in that time and really lose no time because of it?
Will the Coyotes once again own the town like they did in the late 90s?
No.
This is a Suns town.
It's a Cardinals town now too. I think the Coyotes missed their prime opportunity when they decided not to take the Los Arcos site, and Steve Ellman decided to put personal real estate development over the team and move them out to Glendale. That opportunity is long gone, but I still think they can be a valuable part of the sports fabric here in town if they can find a home.
Yeah, I take a lot of pride that we are one of the 13 4 big league towns. Also have the Mercury, the Rattlers, the 2 and 3 and 4 colleges to cover here, and just all the sports, golf tournament, NASCAR, Super Bowl, Final Four. Am I missing anything? What else?
Soccer.
Soccer. Now we have a women's soccer team. That's pretty cool. So, I mean, that's a great time to have a sports show. So, but I think at its core, this is still a Suns town. It is the first franchise, the first pro franchise to call, the Valley of the Sun home and put Phoenix across its chest and kind of put Phoenix on the map here. So, as we dive into the off season here, your mood after that Denver series loss.
You know what? I was not as distraught as some people because to me, this was always the house money year. You came into the playoffs with, 10 games of KD playing with this group. You really didn't have the roster around it to make KD and Book work necessarily. You were hoping that those two guys were enough to carry you and win just because of their unbelievable otherworldly talent, and it didn't happen. You ran into a team with Nikola Jokic, who has been unbelievable this playoffs, and I feel like next year is the do or die year. If you wind up going into next year, you haven't built a sustainable roster around these guys, you haven't figured out how to do this, and you don't make the right coaching hire, that's when all hell breaks loose because you've mortgaged your future to put these two guys together. And if you don't win a title next year, that window becomes very, very close to closing with KD aging. So at this point, next year's the year. I'm not feeling all that awful about this year not winning it all, but Game 6 made it a very tough pill to swallow.
Could Ty Lue have taken the starting lineup in Game 6 against the Nuggets and beat the Nuggets?
What I think is that Ty Lue would not have found himself in a situation with the way he coaches that this team would be as disheartened as they seemed in Game 6. Would they have won? I don't know, but I don't think that they would have been down by 30 plus points in that game. Ty Lue seems to be a guy that gets the most out of every single player on a roster, and knows how to utilize the pieces at his disposal to where you never question the effort or the heart. They always overperform where they're at. So I don't think you would have been embarrassed. I don't know if you win the series, though.
Do you think there's an opportunity here to pry him loose? Or to me, this just seems like his name coming up means he's trying to get a little more security out of the Clippers and send a message to his two superstars, his frustration at their lack of availability.
Yeah, I mean, if the Clippers don't play it right and they're not willing to talk extension or whatever, ego always comes into play. And if somebody wants you more than the team you're with, I certainly could see where he may wind up pushing his way out, but I don't see that being the likely scenario. We've heard Suns fans talk about Bob Myers, the Golden State executive. They're excited about Ty Lue. I hate to break it to people, but I have a strange sneaking suspicion that those two guys will be together, but it'll be in LA with the Clippers.
All right, so who's on your short list then as we cross guys off here? This really is becoming the parade of sadness, by the way.
I really don't know, because I know this will come as a giant surprise, but I didn't spend a lot of time this season looking at the assistant coaches of other teams and wondering who would be a great fit for the Phoenix Suns. And I feel like that's the route we're going down here, is you're going to wind up likely with a first-time head coach, and you're going to have to get it right. Now, a lot of people talk about Ty Lue. Well, the one thing that I find encouraging is when he was a first-time head coach, he won a championship. So it's not unheard of that a guy that's getting the call up to be a head coach from being an assistant can win it all in that year. But we've also seen as many guys like Igor Kokoshkov and Jeff Hornacek and guys like we've seen flame out in Phoenix do the same elsewhere when they get that first opportunity. So they're going to have to do their due diligence and figure it out. And everything I hear about Kevin Young is he's a good guy, he's smart, but do you really want a guy that was on Monty's staff that you just let him go? Is Kevin Young really going to be the answer? I don't know. Like, assistant coaches are a hope and a prayer, right? You look at it and you go, can this guy fill this seat? And we hope so. But none of us really know when it comes to that because we've never seen him do the job.
Well, with Igor was like, hey, you guys should draft Luka. I just coached him in the World Championships. He's really good. And they drafted DeAndre Ayton, and he's like, how am I supposed to coach this guy? And then Hornacek, they gave him 3-point guards, and after almost making the playoffs, he had 3-point guards. So I'd honestly take either of those guys back. I thought they were pretty good coaches and good basketball minds, but why do you think it's going to be an assistant and they're not going to make a big swing for the fences here with a Budenholzer or a Nick Nurse or even a Doc Rivers?
We've heard those names already shot down from people around town, and I tend to think, okay, Mike Budenholzer is Monty Williams 2.0. And the only reason he has a title is because he outsmarted Monty Williams, the guy you just let go in the finals. And then Nick Nurse supposedly had locker room issues. Is that the guy you want to bring in? And does he wear on guys? And then Doc Rivers is Monty Williams with 10 years more experience. When you look at his records, he has the most Game 7 losses in NBA playoff history. I mean, if your beef with what Monty was, he couldn't win elimination games, is Doc Rivers really the guy that you want to bring in to try to win elimination games? Sure, he did it once he came through with the Celtics, but the track record along the way isn't that great. I don't know, Mark. There's no perfect answer. And the crazy thing is, you may have had the guy to do the job here, but he failed so miraculously in 2 elimination games that you couldn't just take that chance again.
Right. And something had to change. You can't fire all the players. That's what they always say. But This roster is going to look, I think, dramatically different come opening night next year. As far as Chris Paul goes, do you expect him to be on the roster come opening night?
Not unless they really can't come up with other plans with this. Do I think they'll guarantee the contract? Yes, because I think the smartest path with Chris Paul is to try to find a trade, because essentially it's a $30 million expiring contract. You can find a team that's looking to get some money off the books from future years, interested in making that move, that may want some veteran leadership for a year or whatnot. I think the right move is to guarantee him and then try to make a trade. But there is the chance you guarantee him, you can't find that trade partner, and then you still have Chris Paul. And that's okay. I mean, the $30 million price tag is the problem here. Chris Paul's still a 14-9 guy. That's a quality point guard, but at the price, you're hoping to get the point god, not the point, semi-deity at this point. You need a guy that's going to play at a superstar level if you're paying 30+ million.
But could he coach the team? I mean, I'm being completely serious here. If Ty Lue is this good of a coach, I think Chris Paul would be an excellent coach one day.
You know what? Only if you could say, hey, we're going to pay you $15 million to coach, and we'll take that $15 million off the salary cap so we can get relief. You can be a player coach. I don't think the CBA allows that. But at some point, I think Chris Paul will be a coach, but I don't think you could move a guy who was just in that locker room as a player and put him on the bench and hope for success. But I think eventually Chris Paul will be a good coach in this league.
Well, the Cubs have done it with their manager. I guess he did take 1 year off and go to the broadcast. But with Bill Russell, and we always talk about like baseball players wear uniforms. Chris Paul could wear a uniform and coach the team and bring that back.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but I don't think so, since we haven't. When was the last time we saw that? The 70s with the early 70s? Like, we haven't seen that in forever. I think that's an era gone by, unless an organization gets super cheap. If this was the disgraced former owner of this team, maybe he'd get creative and be cheap and have a player coach, but I just don't see that anymore.
So you don't think Ishbia takes a swing for the fences here and tries to bring in a big name?
Oh, I think they want to with Ty Lue, but I just don't know that the path makes a lot of sense. You don't have draft capital, so if you're going to try to, pull one of those trades with the Clippers to get them to agree to let Ty Lue out of his contract, I don't know how you're going to pull that off. So then you need Ty Lue to try to leverage them to let him out of his deal. And what's the incentive for them to do that against a team that you just lost to in the playoffs? Because there just isn't. And so that's why I think that is their big swing, but I just don't see the path to necessarily get it done. And maybe they'll pleasantly surprise me, because I also was the one that said I'd eat a shoe if Kevin Durant was traded here by the trade deadline. And guess what? I ate a shoe.
You did?
So
this is on YouTube?
Well, yeah, but I cheated. It was a cake that looked like a shoe, but I still did it.
Yes. Well, I have a path for you. That what would you do now if Ty Lue ended up here? Would you eat another shoe? A cake shoe?
Because I'm not that confident that it won't happen.
Okay. Well, I have a path for you.
Okay.
What if you traded DeAndre Ayton, got a first-round pick back, swap that for Ty Lue, and it's a three-way deal? No.
I'm good, thanks.
No. So you're keeping DeAndre Ayton? Well,
in that deal, yes. I'm not saying that I'm married to DeAndre Ayton, but I think I can get more value than Ty Lue out of trading DeAndre Ayton.
Really? So you think? If you're good, are you good if the Suns line up on the opening night next year and DeAndre Ayton's back here at center?
It depends on who your head coach is. If you get somebody that can maximize what he gives you, that ups his value. And if you need to make a move at the trade deadline, then there's probably more paths to get better talent out of a deal for DeAndre Ayton, because I don't think you can argue that this is the lowest value that he's going to have over the time he's been here, with the way he came out in the playoffs, and a lot of questions with this. Now, there'll always be GMs and front offices that go with the old, I can fix him. This isn't a DeAndre Ayton problem. This is a Suns problem. I can fix him. But I don't think you can get maximum value. So if he's here on the roster with the idea of either he plays into that guy that can help you win a championship, or he plays well enough to help you get the guy that can win you a championship, I'm all right with that.
And, I think it's as simple as if he likes his boss, he'll play a lot better. It was just so clear that he and Monty Williams, weren't on the same page at all. And I think, that's one of the big reasons Monty Williams isn't here anymore. And if you're able to bring somebody in who can, make him enjoy coming to work, you're going to get a DeAndre Ayton. Is it that simple, or are there enough red flags about not being able to grab the ball around the rim and dunk it that think, maybe you just trade him with his low value because you think it's as low as it's going to get?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get much lower. I think you can bring in somebody that can motivate DeAndre Ayton. Hell, we saw Earl Watson come in and for a couple of weeks motivate Markieff Morris enough after sitting out to get you a first-round pick. So you can't tell me that somebody can't come in and motivate DeAndre Ayton to play better and either unlock him or get him to enough where you're going to get a better trade out of him. I think that certainly can happen here. And look, Monty Williams, there's this misconception that Monty Williams was a player's coach. Monty Williams was a player's coach if he liked you as a player. If you weren't in his, in his fave five or whatever you want to call it, he appeared to be more difficult to deal with than a lot of people had the perception. And DeAndre Ayton was one of those guys that fell into that. Now, that does not absolve DeAndre Ayton of everything, but I certainly think it was a major factor in it as well.
Right. And, as you look at the rest of the roster here, who would you bring back next year?
Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Jock Landale are the only guys that I circle and go, all right, these are guys that have talent, showed heart, showed hustle. Ish Wainwright's a back of the roster guy that I'm fine if you bring him back and he's a good practice guy, but I have no problem with a complete overhaul if that's the direction you want to go. But they still need to make a lot of decisions about who's calling the shots, who's making the decisions. What does all this look like? Is James Jones the voice that's going to be deciding the path here? How is that going to work? There are a lot of questions to be answered over the next 6 weeks before free agency and the trade period open up.
Are there enough free agents out there, you think, to restock the roster and get it to where it can compete for a championship next year?
I think a combination of trades and free agency, you definitely can get there, but you're going to have to be creative, and you're going to have to convince some good players to come in probably at a lower price than they get elsewhere because they have the opportunity to win a title and play alongside Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Without that, this is going to be very difficult to build this roster up. And you're going to have to hit on some trades where you take a guy that maybe underperformed in another city and maximizes potential here in Phoenix.
As you looked at Booker and Durant together, I mean, I expected way more. I thought it was going to be pick your poison. Kind of like I expected Kyler Murray to be way more of a running threat, and I get frustrated when I see him drop back in the pocket, a 5-step drop. But as you look at the way that those two guys play together, do you see signs of life there? I mean, I don't know that bringing in 8 new guys off the street is going to get you instant chemistry. I think that's as much of a crapshoot as anything we've had here.
But that's why in both of the cases you bring up, who wound up being shown the door? The coaches, because they weren't putting the players in the position. I think Kevin Durant wound up in this weird glorified Mikal Bridges role with this team, which was not setting him up for success in any way whatsoever. So to really try to judge us, I mean, you saw in some of those regular season games when Kevin Durant got it going and Devin Booker got it going at the same time, it could be a thing of beauty. I mean, heck, even Kevin Durant was never Kevin Durant in the playoffs, but in those 2 wins against the Nuggets, there were some moments offensively that you went, yeah, that's why they put these guys together. There's definitely a rhythm and a flow. I just don't think it was I don't think it was put in a position to succeed. So I'm never going to count out 2 guys that are arguably in the top 12 in the NBA and say, well, this can't work because we saw a handful of games. I need to see it under a new coach. I need to see it with the training camp and go from there. I mean, they're two of the best talented guys in the league. They'll figure out how to make it work.
And I just wonder if that rolled ankle is just going to be such an infamous moment in Arizona sports history. I mean, I agree. I got to see it next year. But, I think when sometimes when you see something together and it doesn't work, you can try a million different ways. Not to say that I don't think we could be celebrating the championship this time next year, but, man, it's going to take somebody a lot smarter than me to figure this out. That if that rolled ankle doesn't happen, do you think there's any sort of other outcome here for the Suns? Are they still playing?
They may still be playing. They may have been in the Western Conference Finals, but I still think in the end, the lack of depth, the weird rotations, the lack of adjustments that were a hallmark of the Monty Williams era probably would have been their downfall in this playoff run, even with a completely healthy Kevin Durant. And if you have similar injuries to CP3 and DA, even with the healthy Kevin Durant, I still think it puts you in a position to not succeed, because you needed every bit of those four guys to make up for the lack of depth that you were dealing with.
All right. Is anybody else over there like Derek in baseball or Leah in hockey? Johnny or Bo in football? Any more sadness? Any more the parade of sad? Can they just parade through?
Am I not enough, Mark?
No. I almost think you're too positive. Like, I've just been walking around with I've been moping around all day.
Mark, I can either sit here and be downtrodden and look at this as woe is us, and give into 50 plus years of history, or be willfully ignorant and just hope it'll be better. And I choose to be willfully ignorant.
Hey, that's another name for a podcast. Hey, thanks so much for joining us here, man. Always appreciate the conversation, and great talking to you.
Always a pleasure.
The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.